Hello and welcome to the Vatican in Rome, where it has been announced that the funeral of Pope Francis will take place on Saturday. This as many thousands of people continue to come to the Vatican. The pontiff died on Monday morning at the age of 88. He suffered a stroke and then subsequent heart failure. We'll take a look at these live pictures. These are the current scene now in St. Peter's Square, where mourners from around the world are arriving to pay their respects. Well, Pope Francis last appeared in public on Sunday for an Easter blessing in front of crowds and worshippers. That came after weeks of poor health and hospitalisation with pneumonia. So let's briefly talk you through the choreography in the coming days and weeks, because the death of the Pope set off a chain of events that have been planned for many, many years. Pope Francis' body is now resting in a chapel at his St. Martha residence. So take a look at these. These are some of the official pictures we've received from there. The Pope will then be moved to St. Peter's Basilica to lie in state on Wednesday morning. That is where his funeral will be held, and the funeral mass will take place just outside the Basilica in St. Peter's Square. Well, as for the leadership of the Church, the vote to select a new Pope will take place here at the Sistine Chapel in the coming weeks. Well, over the coming hours, we will look back at the life and legacy of the Pope and look ahead to the future of the Catholic Church. First, though, here's our Rome correspondent, Sarah Rainsford.
Prayers for a Pope who touched the hearts of many millions all over the world, and who is being remembered here in Rome with real affection. Pope Francis had been ill for many weeks, but his death was still a shock to many who had seen him right here just a day before, outside St. Peter's. He'd appeared after the Easter Sunday Mass. His frailty, after a long battle with pneumonia, was clear to see. But this is a holy year for Catholics, and being with them at Easter was hugely important to the Pope. As his death was announced and bells tolled over the Vatican, Catholics shared their memories.
He put a lot of effort into people inside and outside the church realize that we can communicate and help each other, and that's the most basic and important thing that he left behind, communication and giving each other a hand to help.
In one of many ancient rituals to come, the Pope's apartment has been sealed, his ring smashed. The papal seat is now officially vacant until a conclave and an election. And the flags here have been lowered for 9 days of official mourning. Far from Rome, in Argentina, the loss is felt keenly. This is the country where Pope Francis was born to Italian immigrants. One reason why he always urged compassion for migrants across the world.
He was more than a pope. He was a politician, he was humanitarian. He represented even the ones that didn't believe in God and made everyone feel so heard.
In London too, at Westminster Cathedral, there were prayers, candles and even tears.
I think he was wonderful. His simplicity, his kindness, his care of people. I loved the fact that he lived in the hospital and didn't want to sleep in all the smart places, that they gave him, and that he was a very simple man.
The Pope's last testament has now been revealed, remembering those who prayed for him and offering up his own suffering for peace in the world and fraternity among peoples. It included his request to be buried not in the Vatican, but in a church where he liked to pray in central Rome. And a Pope of famously simple tastes wants his tomb marked only with his name.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, the passing of a Pope sets off a chain of events, a series of events which are carefully planned, orchestrated and choreographed. And to talk more through all of this, I'm joined by our former Rome correspondent, Mark Lowen. And Mark, you have covered these events before. Tell me exactly what we can expect over the coming days, now that we know the date of the funeral.
Well, the first thing to be planned is tomorrow morning, Wednesday morning, when the Pope's coffin will be moved to St. Peter's Basilica, where it will be lying there for a few days for pilgrims and the faithful to come and visit and see him in the open casket. That will continue until Saturday, when the funeral is planned for 10 a.m. local time, that is 0900 BST, and that funeral will be attended by royalty, by heads of state. We already know that Emmanuel Macron, the President of France, has said he will be there. President Trump will be there with Melania as well, the First Lady. There will be leaders from across the world going to that funeral. The coffin at the end of the funeral will be moved to the Basilica di Santa Maria Maggiore, which is on the other side of Rome, and that is where Pope Francis said he wants to be buried. Now, he will become the first pope to be buried there and not in the Vatican for more than a century. It is a church, it is a basilica which he feels very close to. He would always stop to pray there at the end of a papal visit, for example, to pray to an icon of Mary, and he has left quite detailed instructions of how he wants to be buried: in a simple tomb. He wants to be put in a coffin made of wood and zinc, and there have only been 6 popes actually who have been buried outside the Vatican, so that's quite consequential. And then there will be a little pause of about 9 days in which there will be people coming here to pay their respects, to mourn him. And then the conclave begins, which is the process in which the cardinals, the cardinal electors, around 138 of them, will come here to Rome, and they will go inside the Sistine Chapel, inside the Vatican, inside Vatican City behind us, and there they will begin that process, that deeply secretive, deeply holy process of choosing the next leader of the Catholic Church.
And there'll be so many hundreds of thousands of pilgrims, mourners and tourists expected here over the coming days.
Yeah, I mean, when John Paul II died, who was also an incredibly popular pope, it was thought that there were over 1 million pilgrims and faithful who came to Rome to pay their respects, to see his open casket. Pope Francis was a superstar pope in the eyes of many. We're already seeing thousands of people coming here. If we look down at St. Peter's Square, we can see people beginning to kind of go towards the Basilica of St. Peter's Basilica even before the casket goes inside that building. We will expect huge crowds here. He is somebody who draws the crowds in their masses.
Okay.